You can play Switch games on your Nintendo 64. Nintendo is known for its backwards compatibility in consoles like the DS and Wii, but in 1993, when the N64 was being created, the hardware designers came up with a slot that could hold a specific chip that would have come with the console. The only thing the chip did was show a screen for when the console couldn't read a game. The chip was eventually scrapped, but the slot wasn't. While creating the Switch, Yoshiaki Koizumi, overseer of development, realized the console wouldn't be backwards compatible with the previous console, the Wii U. He decided the cartridge would be the same size as the abandoned N64 chip, giving the N64 the ability to play Switch games. One thing you'll notice is the graphics are significantly worse, and the game won't save any progress. But also, I'm lying. Did you really believe me when I said? The N64 can be played with a GameCube controller. The N64 and GameCube controller connectors have the same shape, but as you can see, the GameCube connector is too small for the N64. However, you can plug your GameCube controller into the back of the N64 controller. That alone won't work. You'll also need two AA batteries. Simply rest them beside where you plugged in the GameCube controller. One should be facing up, one should be facing down. It doesn't matter which one. This is going to produce a constant flow of electricity, taking energy from the console, bringing it to the GameCube controller, and then giving it back to the console. Be careful not to touch the batteries while the console is on. But also, there's no way this would ever work. Go ahead and watch this video again. It still won't make it true. Ready? Here we go. You can use the internet on a Game Boy Advance. In 2004, a third-party company named Govio created an internet browser cartridge for the GBA. All you would have to do is make sure you had a wireless adapter plugged into your Game Boy. From there, the adapter would search nearby networks, though you had to be in really close range to receive a signal. Once online, the internet was yours to browse. These cartridges were very limited, and after Govio went out of business, they stopped being made entirely. They're extremely rare to find today, and shockingly, it still works. But also, I'm lying. That whole story was false, but at least now you won't be fooled if someone tells you. You can play DS games on the Wii. Have you ever noticed the GameCube memory card slots in your Wii? Well, as it turns out, those aren't just for the GameCube. The DS itself was not capable of storing memory, so instead, DS game data would save on cartridges themselves. DS games were kind of like their own memory cards. Put the DS game inside the first GameCube memory card slot. The Wii will recognize it as a GameCube game. Make sure there isn't already a game inside the Wii. Click start, and now you're playing your DS game, and the Wii remote will act as the stylus. You will only be able to see the bottom screen of your game, and this only works on the Wii, so don't try putting a DS game in your actual GameCube. But also, I'm lying. You can send this video to your friends to fool them into thinking that you can catch Pokemon in Pokemon Go in space. In 2018, Pokemon Go developers made an update to the game allowing people to play the game in space. Astronaut Lenny Bond promoted this feature in a video showing him playing it on the International Space Station. But how exactly does this work? Well, Pokemon Go uses data from Google Maps and Google Earth, and one day, NASA reached out to Niantic, the company that developed Pokemon Go, and asked if players could catch Pokemon in space. At the time, this wasn't an option, but soon after, Pokemon Go started tracking location data using Google Sky if the device was outside of Earth. The best part is, legendaries are extremely common to find in space. But also, I'm lying. I wish this were true, but unfortunately what I'm about to say is absolutely fake. Twitter was once released on the PlayStation 3. Now I know what you're thinking. Twitter on PS3? There's no way. But hear me out. We all remember the PS3 Netflix disc. And not long after that was released, Sony had the brilliant idea of bringing Twitter, the hottest social media app at the time, right to people's home consoles. This made it easy for gamers to access their Twitter feeds without having to leave their PS3. It was especially convenient to share achievements and screenshots from the PS3 to Twitter in seconds. Despite all of this, it was actually considered a massive flop. For one, navigating Twitter on the PS3 was difficult and felt like a chore, and it also lacked many essential features like direct messaging. But also, I'm lying. Twitter on PS3? What a stupid idea. But if it were real, I'd probably say something like, you can play GameCube games on your PlayStation 2. When the PS2 was first being created, Sony and Nintendo came to a licensing agreement that would allow their next consoles to play each other's games. Originally, both the PS2 and GameCube game discs were supposed to be small, but Sony eventually opted out of that and decided the PS2 would have the larger 4.7-inch size so it could also play DVD movies. Nintendo was furious and the agreement was called off, but it was too late for Sony to change the PS2 software, and Nintendo didn't want to change anything about the GameCube games, so as a result, the PS2 could still play them. Sony, however, was not allowed to use this as a selling point for the PS2. But it didn't take long for users to discover the feature anyway. But also, I'm lying. This is totally fake, and you know what else is a lie? The idea that you can scan Pokemon cards to catch Pokemon in red and blue. When the Game Boy Advance SP came out, they added a feature where not only could you play original Game Boy games, but if you had Pokemon red or blue, you could scan cards to catch Pokemon in the game. The SP actually stands for Scan Pokemon. Simply put the game in the Game Boy, I'll use Pokemon Red. Notice how it says 95, 96, and 98? You're gonna need to use Pokemon cards that also have those numbers on the bottom. Go to your Pokemon and close the Game Boy. Make sure you don't already have a full team or else this won't work. Now insert the card until you feel resistance. Hold down the L and R buttons until you hear a sound.
Let's go, okay.
Kind of like a document scanner, the screen is scanning the card. You should now see the Pokemon in your team, and yes, you can do this to catch Mew. But also, I'm lying. You actually believed me, but did you know that